All right, well, good afternoon, everybody. Glad to be here. My name is Tim Beckham, and I'm from the state of Oregon. And we're here, me and Rich and Brett are here. We're going to talk about teaching strategies for teaching and driver education in the virtual world. I know we have been kind of thrown into a different world since COVID hit, and how do we go about it? And I think what we're going to talk about today is very relevant to this day and age of driver education. And when I started doing this, I was really against teaching on Zoom or in a virtual platform. I really thought that it was going to be not as good as in person. I still don't think it's as good as in person, but what this has shown me is that teaching virtually has a lot of benefits, some that are better in person, and some that are just as good as in person. And it really opened my eyes to the validity of teaching in the virtual world. So we're going to talk about some tips that we have learned over this past year to help us become better at teaching in a virtual platform. And so it's Rich and Brett. So Rich, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Well, I have, you guys have known me because I just did 2 presentations for you. But I'm Rich Hansen, and I've been teaching driver ed since the middle of 1995. And I have been involved in teacher training and in setting national standards for teacher training and for novice teen driver education. I am excited about being here. I love this presentation. Tim, Brett, and I have such a fun time doing it. Unfortunately, if you go back to my 2 presentations earlier, Brett's going to cover some of the things that I did that are verbal miscues. So just kind of remember back to that, and you'll have examples completely in place for you.
I'll use you as an example, Rich. And I'm Brett Robinson. First, I'm the Secretary for the Association of National Stakeholders in Traffic Safety Education. On Monday, Ned Ferris presented on another topic of which we did talk a little bit about who ANSTI is, and he talked about the role of driver education and vehicle technology, another huge issue within driver education. And then I also serve as the executive director for the American Driver and Traffic Safety Education, or ADSEA. And thank you all for being here. Look forward to today's presentation. You're gonna like this. There's a lot of good stuff in this.
I do want to brag about Tim. Have you introduced yourself, Tim?
I said my name was Tim Beckham. Does that work? Is that not enough?
Yeah.
All right. So let's see here. I'm the 2020 Teacher of Excellence Award winner for the Northwest, given by ADSEA. I am a trainer with Western Oregon University. I've presented at quite a few different states and locations here, especially this past year, especially on virtual. Tends to be my matter of expertise on that one. So that's what I've done. All right. I said so twice. I'm sorry, Brett.
That's all right, but I'll do this for you, Rich. Tim will say he learned a lot, or has learned a lot from Rich and myself over the years. But I have to tell you guys right now, as we get into this presentation, I've learned a lot from Tim over the past year plus, particularly as we've really wrestled with this whole issue of teaching virtually. And from Tim and Rich, you're going to get a lot of good information today. So let's dive into it, guys.
Go for
Sounds
it.
good.
Light the fires, kick the tires, Tim. Let's go.
So let's talk about the objectives first. We're going to learn that virtual training can, in ways, be better than in-person training. We're going to talk about questioning techniques. How do we do it in the classroom? And there are more effective ways to question. Is there ways to do all these different types of questioning techniques? We're going to go over that. And we're going to talk about some tools that we have in our virtual classroom. And we put new tools there because Rich and I did a workshop in August, and we'll give you that link and everything that goes to the ANSI website. But we talked about tools there, but we also talked, and then we did another one, what was it, November?
Yeah.
Something like that. And we came up with new tools, things that we learned, some new things. So we're going to talk about the old tools that we brought up and new tools that we have. And physical activities. I think what happens a lot of times is when we get into this virtual classroom, we tend to think that we don't need that physical activities are just gone, and that's not true. We can still do physical activities, so they're still participating, and we're going to show you how to do that in this workshop here. And then we're also going to talk about the generation. Who are we teaching? What are they like? How can we take this virtual classroom and apply it to where it fits perfectly with the generation that we're teaching?
So, you know, there's a lot of concerns about virtual teaching and training. Well, the first concern is they won't remember everything, but we'll talk about that in a bit. And they won't be able to do the student-centered activities. And you know what? We have ways to be able to conduct those. We won't be able to get feedback on how each student is doing. And the questioning is too hard as a concern of virtual training.
All right, the setup. That's the first thing we got to talk about is the setup. How are we going to set up our virtual classroom? And the first thing is we have to have dual monitors. I have taught, I think, 2 classes without a dual monitor. And I can tell you right now, it is the worst 2 classes I've ever taught. It is amazing what happens when you can separate out, because I can have my information that I'm teaching on one screen and the screen next to it, or you might see me glance up. Mine's actually up today. And you can have other information. You have the video feed of everybody, so you can monitor the students. You can put the chat box up there as well. You can see your participants box, see if there's a student that wants to come in. But when you have just a single monitor, it becomes a lot harder to manage and deal with all those things. I don't know if you've ever been in a Zoom meeting where someone said, oh, I can't keep up with chat. But if you have a dual monitor, it's gonna be a lot easier because you can have that chat box up the whole time. And it's really, really important that you have dual monitors. I think Rich has 3 screens, so like triple monitors, right? Like if you can do that, do it. The more things that you can put out there to help yourself manage a classroom, instead of having to go in and click on something and check it out, the better it's going to be for you when you teach. And hardwire if possible. Wi-Fi is great, especially if high-speed Wi-Fi, yes, but sometimes Wi-Fi gets a little sketchy, and you might cut out for, even if it's 5 seconds. And if you are teaching, you don't want that to happen, because that 5 seconds that you cut out might be the 3 most important words you say in the whole entire sentence. And then the students have missed what you taught. And we understand you can't always hardwire. And that's just kind of the way it goes. But if you can, make sure you are doing that. Just plug in right to the modem into your computer and plug in. Oh, Brett, great thing. Great idea there. So an adapter. My computer actually does not have an Ethernet port. So I had to get a USB and get an Ethernet adapter. And those are like, what, $10?
Yep.
That's what I got it for. Yeah, $10. And just plugs right in. It's super easy to, I mean, there's no installation. You just plug and it's good to go. And make sure that if you do not have an Ethernet port, to buy an adapter, because you have to hardwire if you can. And plug in your computer. You do not want to be in the middle of the class and then see the low battery, 10% left. Like that's the there's a problem. And here's the reality is sometimes, especially if your computer's a little bit older, that 10% lasts 10 seconds. So you have 10 seconds to plug in that computer. Most times we can't get it there in time. And then your computer shuts off, and now the class is off on their own, doing their own thing. So make sure you're plugging in your computer so that we do not have these issues. There's always going to be issues with technology. We love technology until we hate it. Take care of as many problems as you can before you even start, and plugging in is going to be one of those. If you're ever building any slides, make sure it's at least 28-point font. And you guys are like, well, the at least is a lot smaller. Yeah. If you're watching on a phone, that at least is probably going to be very, very small. It's going to be very hard for you to read. So 28-point font at the very minimum, so that everybody, no matter what device they're using, they can see it. Another thing about this virtual platform is it can be used on any device. And that's awesome. And it makes it very accessible. And the reason why I put iPhone and iPad on here is because sometimes an iPhone or iPad isn't going to let you see everything. For an example, a poll question. If we release a poll question, which we will here in a little bit, if anybody's on iPhone or iPad, you might not be able to actually see the box that comes up with the questions. I just want to tell everybody about that because I've had this happen to me with so many students. And at first I was like, I don't know what to do because I didn't know that. And now that I figured it out, we can plan ahead. So you can have them put the answer in chat, something like that, build a slide that has the poll question. So that way they can always participate. And that's really important. If you know what's going on, the issues that your students are going to have, it can help us troubleshoot a lot quicker.
So there are some things that come up to play here that are of concern. The first one is the microphone's not working. We want to get feedback from our kids occasionally, and we want it to be verbal so that we can hear what they're thinking. So if you take the opportunity, go to the caret next to the microphone. It's on the bottom of your screen. And all you have to do is check that, click that to see if the microphone's even on, or if they're using it from a different system, like their telephone and so on. So select same as system, and that way then they can use the internet connection that they have with what you're doing much more easily. And if they're using a microphone with headphones, then just make sure that they're plugged in properly and that they work effectively. And they can choose their microphone headphones in the same place with that little up caret. It looks kind of like this.
Okay. So what about their camera? What if their camera's not working? This is my favorite one. I get students, they try and mess with the system, right? It's always good if you can to have them use their camera. It's a lot easier to manage the class if you can see what they're doing. And if you can see what Rich is doing, he's turning his camera off and on. And that's going to be important. And I'm going to talk about that just in a second. But let's talk about how the camera is going to work. First of all, the caret, again, next to your camera, same as system, or if they have another camera that's connected to their computer, they can choose that one. If there is no background, but the screen is black. So Rich, turn off your camera again. Take away his picture. It's just black like that without the picture. That means the camera's not working. How can you combat that? You can tell them that to turn your camera off and on. Sometimes that works. Sometimes they have to log out of Zoom and come back in. And my ultimate favorite, if there is an issue with any computer, restart the computer. It seems to work almost every time.
And they can restart the computer much more easily than you can, because you're only going to lose that one student versus the class losing their teacher. So it's not a problem.
Exactly. But if their background has their picture or their name on it or some other thing that they decided to put up there, like when Rich's camera was off, he had his picture of himself, which I think was taken 10 years ago, Rich?
2012 or we were in Italy.
Look at that, 9 years.
Yeah,
that means that their camera isn't on at all. And my favorite thing is when I have students that say, oh, my camera's not working. It's like, you're not even turning on your camera. That's how you can tell. And I love it when they do that. And another thing about the camera is that when it keeps turning off and on, which you saw Rich's camera coming off and on. Why does that happen? They're doing on their phone or maybe even a tablet. And what's happening is they're going in and out of Zoom. So they're on Zoom and then they decide, oh, I got a text from somebody, or I got to do a Snapchat, or I got to make a tweet. They're going out of Zoom. Once you go out of the app, the camera is going to turn off. You have to stay in Zoom for the camera to be working. So you know that they're doing something else instead of being on Zoom the whole time. Now, does that work on every single other platform? I'm not exactly sure. So most places use Zoom, but there are other ones out there.
Tim, I want to say something else too, that if you are on a computer and they disappear, or it goes to what's called paused, and if they do that, then they're going out of the Zoom application and multitasking on some other application. Okay.
Absolutely. It's easier on a phone to do that. You can always multitask on a computer pretty well, especially if they have a second screen with that one. And then lights flashing on their face. Their video's on and you see lights flashing into their face, but you're not playing a video. That means that they're watching a video, they're doing something else other than paying attention to your class. They're on YouTube or something like that. I've had students playing video games and they're not even smart about it. Like, let's just take this as my controller. The controller's like this, and they're just like, You're like, what do you even do? Like, do you don't think I see that? You know, it's what happens is when they're in the virtual classroom, there's this feeling of that they're anonymous, that you can't see me, so I can do whatever. And that's one reason why we have a camera on, so we can always see. And then sometimes we just have to gently remind them, we can see what you're doing. We can definitely see what you're doing. All right, so here's a poll question. This should be launched here just a second. What does it mean when the student's camera is turning off and on? There is, so Zoom is glitching. They're using, I have to move it a second. They're using their phone and going out of Zoom, their camera's broken, or their bandwidth is slow. And again, if you cannot see it, you can put it in chat, although I'm not seeing, there we go. You can put that in chat and give us the answer. And I can't tell if they're voting or not. Can you guys?
I can't tell on the poll, but what I can do is watch chat, so I'll be keeping my eyes on that.
Yeah, I can't tell in the polls either.
They're voting and we'll share the results once they're done.
Okay, but you do see them coming in.
Yep, we got about 28% have voted so far.
Okay,
28%.
let's get to
Man.
work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Answers.
We're gonna get through this. We gotta go a little quicker.
And like Tim mentioned, if you can't vote in the poll, you can put your answer in chat, and that's fine. And it's just A, B, C, or D.
We need quick answers. You're not allowed to go to the internet and find your answers. You're not allowed to Google.
You can't backtrack on the presentation.
All right, how many percent we got now?
We're at 37.
37.
That's probably reasonable. We can get enough info from that. Extrapolate our data.
Let's move on. Oh,
All right, so technical issues. Oh, they got it right. So on the technical issues, trouble getting in. Sometimes a student has a phone number that or they're having difficulty getting in, and they just are just really perplexed that they can't make it in. And so one of the things that you can do to help your students is to have a phone number that they can call you during the class time so that they can get some direct help from you. And sometimes the link that they have could be in the spam folder. I don't know if any of you experienced that when Audra sent out the link for the conference, but sometimes that happens when kids, because they have a very sensitive spam filter. And if it's not working, restart the computer or their phone. Sometimes just restarting all of the different protocols and algorithms in your phone. Once that happens, it makes it so it can actually begin starting again to get into some of those more complex programs. And you may need to set your browser so that it doesn't have any pop-up blockers. I know that a lot of us don't like pop-up blockers because it's like whack-a-mole. You're trying to put them away. But in this particular case, you need to fix your browser so that it will allow pop-ups to occur.
all right. I'm gonna do a chat question here. What other technical difficulties have you seen while teaching in a virtual setting? Go ahead and put those in chat. We just don't want to talk at you the whole time.
And do it in chat, not in Q&A. You guys better get ready because I'm going to do a lot of chat with you. Let's see those answers.
Yeah, Brett likes to do what's called a chat waterfall.
Right. I think they're exhausted. They've had so many presentations this week already. Doug Snow got C. That's good.
Repeat the question,
yeah.
Tim.
That was the poll question.
Repeat the question.
Yep.
What technical difficulties have you dealt with while teaching in a virtual setting? And if you haven't taught in a virtual setting, just put I haven't taught in a virtual setting. Okay.
Is chat enabled?
I asked for it to be enabled. And
I asked for it to be enabled. I mean, Doug got through.
I don't think the chat is working because I don't see anything came from somebody in Q&A. Can you read mine? Yes.
yeah,
I can't read mine.
I don't know who.
It is definitely working. They just need to make sure they send it to all panelists and attendees. It's turned on.
Yeah, send it to all panelists and attendees.
Thanks, Audra.
You guys get ready. We're going to use this a lot. I haven't taught in a virtual setting. Come on, let's get some answers in there.
Okay. Well, I guess
I
we'll
think
just
I'm
move on.
multitasking. We need to move.
I think we're going to have to stay late for class today.
Yeah, yeah.
Mine still isn't working, even though I restarted. So I don't know. Okay, go ahead.
All right. Let's talk about a screenshot moment. So what I do, it was when I'm teaching, I say, this is your screenshot moment. So then you have these students who are going to be taking screenshots of the information on their computer. And what it does is alerts the student that something is important is coming up, something that they're going to need to know later on, something that's going to be important on a drive. Maybe it's something that's going to be on a test that they're going to have. But what it does is it alerts them and makes them realize I need to be paying attention. So if you're ever teaching and you realize that maybe I'm starting to lose them, then it can be, hey, screenshot moment. Maybe that's what I need to start saying from now on. Screenshot moment. It's been a really good thing for me. I actually really do love it. But let's talk about how to take a screenshot. If we're going to say, you know what, this is your screenshot moment, you should probably know how to do your own screenshot. It's going to be different with every single computer. So here's the basics. On any like Windows type of HP, it's gonna be the Windows key and the print screen at the same time. It could just be the print screen button's gonna automatically take it. Chromebook, it's Control and Show Windows keys at the same time. And the Mac, it's Shift, Command, and 3 key at the same time.
So Tim, we didn't talk about how to do it on a phone, correct?
Yeah, I actually taught Brett how to do a screenshot on his phone. It was amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
So on my phone, my buttons are right here on the side. It's going to be the power button and the volume down button at the same time. On my phone before that, it was the power button was on this side and then the volume key. And what is it on an iPhone, Rich?
So the iPhone is the power button and the volume down key button on it, so that you can just, it works for the iPhone and the iPad in a similar manner. On the older versions, it's the power button and the home button at the bottom of the screen.
Okay, there you go. Now, does that cover every single computer or tablet or phone out there? Absolutely not. You can just Google also how to do a screenshot and type in your computer or device, and you will be able to see exactly what you need to do.
So sometimes there's lag in bandwidth. That should be bad bandwidth. I have taught and shared videos on this with Tim on my computer, and it's not hardwired. So we get a little as it's going through and trying to get the video out there. And one of the things I would say is make sure you're hardwired. If you're hardwired, you're not going to have the bad bandwidth issue. Students will have a problem. Sometimes they don't have the bandwidth because the parents haven't purchased a program, internet providers that has a lot of bandwidth, or sometimes they're doing it on their cell and it's an old 3G or something of that nature. So it's not going to have the bandwidth, and you can't really solve that for them. You have to give the students or give time to allow for the screen to load so that it can become a screenshot moment for the kids. Don't have them say, all right, this is a screenshot moment. Boom, it's up. Now I'm on to the next slide. That doesn't work for the kids because it still takes time to load on their end, and they need to be able to have a full picture of what they're seeing before they actually take their screenshot. And I'll have to, the interesting part, activities have to be adjusted. No duh. That's really something that has to happen because we just can't do them the same way that we did in classroom. And so there's ways to do it, and it actually is pretty easy to do. We'll talk about that a little bit later.
And now it's time for Brett to talk about verbal mannerisms. So I'm going to stop my share and then, oh, Brett just did it anyway. Thanks.
Okay, so do we have chat or not? Can everybody can you go to chat and tell me if you have chat or not? Yes or no? Because I may have to adapt.
Doug Snow's been on the spot all day long, same with James. You know,
Yeah, I'm getting a lot of it's not working. The Q&A.
Oh, it's not working. All right, well, that's one of the things too about teaching or presenting in the virtual setting. Sometimes you have to adapt and overcome. And I planned on using chat quite a bit because I want to get you guys involved. I only see a couple of yeses, so some of you may still be having problems. Take out a piece of paper, a pen and a pencil, because I want you to write down and respond to some of the questions that we are going to ask during this next segment. And in the next segment, we're going to talk about verbal distracting mannerisms in the virtual setting. And since this really came about, I'm going to say around this time last year, I sat in many meetings, many training sessions, and I began to write down all the verbal distracting mannerisms that people had in the virtual setting. And that list became quite a list. And I kept telling Tim and Rich that I wanted to do a session just on verbal distracting mannerisms, and finally was able to in the early part of February with the ADSEA Southeast Region Conference. And this is the second time in which I presented it. So just to give you a quick overview, for about the next 10 minutes, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about distracting verbal mannerisms and how they've always been a challenge in the classroom. We've always dealt with distracting verbal mannerisms, but over the past year, since the emergence of the virtual meeting space, even before the past year, but definitely more prevalent in the last year, or more obvious, or a lot of terms that are grossly overused. And back in February, somebody mentioned how verbal distracting mannerisms are grossly overused. And I think by the time I was done with that presentation, everybody said now grossly was an overused word in the virtual setting. Hey, one of the main reasons why we have these distracting verbal mannerisms in the virtual setting is we're terrified of silence when we're teaching, or even if you're in a meeting. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with pausing. I think, in fact, you'll see, I'll use Tim as an example. In working with Tim over the last year, I've noticed, Tim, you do a fantastic job of periodically just stopping and pausing. It gives all of us time to think. Hey, looking at virtual verbal mannerisms. Is just one of those that is so grossly overused. And we call those fillers. So on a piece of paper, I want you to write down what are some other filler words that you are familiar with. Maybe you use them or you've seen others use them. If you can do it in chat, do it in chat, but please don't do it in the Q&A, because that's going to be a lot of work for Audra and her team to clean up. I'm going to give you just a second to write down what a few of these filler words are that we use.
and if you're having a tough time with that, you can just go back to my presentation this morning and also the one that I did 2 days ago, and you can pick up a lot of those things just as Brett's talking about.
I'll have an example here in just a second. But some of these fillers include, obviously, probably the one that's the most grossly overused. And we'll talk about why we do use these in just a second. There's a whole, there's variations of ahs that we use. We may not use but we use ahs. So, not sure why, but about this time last year, I picked up this distracting mannerism because I sat in meetings or in training sessions with others that used the word so. and used it repetitively. And that's one of the key things here. We're using these repetitively. So anyway, but anyhow, well, let's. There are people that use let's. It's kind of a transition in a way, or also a filler. So the question is, how can we get rid of these fillers? Oh, I'm seeing some chats come in. A few of them. I see Kay, like, fantastic. Hey, how can we get rid of these fillers? There's one primary way we can get rid of these fillers, and actually I've already given you the answer. If you can put it in chat or you write it down. And one of the simplest ways to remove these fillers is replace with a pause. Again, it goes back to, we are deathly afraid. Yeah, do not fear the pause from Doug Snow. Excellent answer. Do not fear the pause. We need time to think, and most importantly, our students need time to think while we're teaching. But we feel we have to talk nonstop. There are so many pros to a pause, whether you're in a traditional classroom or you are in a virtual setting. And that's probably one of the biggest takeaways from this piece today is learn to pause. As we continue talking about verbal distracting mannerisms. All right, okay, K, A. These are affirmation. Write down real quick some other words that you might be aware of, or put it in chat. What are some words we use looking for affirmation? I'll give you a second just to write those down. Correct. Yeah, that a good one. So some of the terms we use, when we use them repetitively, are all right, all right, all right, all right, and we use it repetitively. Okay, okay. When I first started teaching, one of my first classes was my driver education course. And in a 5-minute presentation, I said okay over 40 times. One of my classmates, they tracked, recorded, and yeah, over 40 times just in a 5-minute presentation. Okay, okay, okay. And you can see that gets very distracting. K is another form of it. A, especially for in the northern tier, got it, got it. And that could come across negatively. And I've seen that used a lot of times as well. How can we get rid of these distracting verbal mannerisms, these distracting words? There's one simple solution to getting rid of the all rights, the okays, okay. If someone is counting how much you do something, then you do it too much. There is no doubt. Good comment in chat. And we can just simply replace this with, again, use a little bit of a pause, but then replace with, are there any questions? We don't have to say repetitively, all right, okay, okay. We need to pause periodically and just ask, are there any questions? And you can get rid of these verbal distracting mannerisms, these repetitive words. As we continue, others include uncertainty or unfamiliar words that we use. They are words we use repetitively that show we are uncertain of what we're teaching or we're unfamiliar with what we're teaching. What are some of these words? I really wish we had chat, but write down some of these words. If you come up with just one, when you write it down on a piece of paper, fantastic. But these are words I have seen used repetitively that really do, I think, impact your credibility because it shows you're uncertain and you're unfamiliar with the content that you are teaching. Actually, it's this way, or actually, again, it shows you're uncertain. Essentially, it's like this. Well, is it or is it not? Well, in essence, very similar. Well, in essence, it's like this. Basically, and I've seen presenters, teachers use basically so many times in a presentation, you start to wonder what's going on. Basically, it's this, or basically it's that. Well, is it or isn't it? It says here. Many people teaching from a lesson plan, particularly one maybe they're not familiar with, or they don't believe in something, they'll say, well, it says here. Well, again, it shows you don't believe. You don't have passion for what you are teaching. And these I absolutely hate. I think they came about at least a decade or more ago, particularly with a lot of our celebrities, and it just infiltrated our whole society. You know what I mean. And no, I don't know what you mean, or I wouldn't be here. I'm here to learn. So no, and that's what's going through my head when somebody says, you know what I mean. Well, actually, no, I don't, or I wouldn't be here. And how can we get rid of these? This is very important. Always present materials as a matter of fact, and that the information is coming directly from you. Do not blow your credibility by using these types of words repetitively, because it does show that you're uncertain or you're unfamiliar with what you are teaching. It should always come from you, and it should be matter of fact. Hey, next, as we wrap it up, other repetitive words or phrases that we use, and it isn't just in the virtual setting, it's just they've become more pronounced, I think, in the virtual settings. These are some crazy ones. These or those ones. Here you go. Heard that one a lot. This and that. And it's usually this and that, not this and that. Like, things like, or things like this, and like definitely should not be in your vocabulary, neither here nor there, and so forth and so on. All kinds of phrases that we use. And then there's our local vernacular. And we do get to travel around the United States a lot. We get to teach in virtual settings. And right now, I just want you to write down on a piece of paper or put in chat, what's a local saying that you have in your area that should never be a part of teaching in the classroom? Just write it down. I live in an area where we use the term yins, or yins guys. And yins guys should never be a part of your vocabulary when teaching in a classroom, brick and mortar, or virtually. These are phrases you should never, never, ever use, and especially a lot of our local vernacular as well. Now, unfortunately, though, there are some good words, some positive words that we overuse. So they're good terms, but they can be overused. Think about some of them. Huh?
I say, look out, it's coming. I know it's coming.
Yeah. Write down on a piece of paper. What are some good terms, good words that can be overused? If you can throw it in chat, do it, because it kind of helps me out giving you some examples. And just write down a good word, but yeah, perfect, 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 perfect. Once I've said that now 35 times, perfect became a distracting mannerism, a distracting word that I am grossly overusing repetitively. They're good terms. Perfect. Exactly. Excellent. Very good. Good. They're all good words to use, but what we need to do is use a variety of positive reinforcement terms. Don't get focused, zoned in on using just one term. Yes. And we don't have to say excellent every time. You can just simply, yes, a thumbs up goes a long way. Correct. Very good. Perfect. Exactly. Excellent. I was conducting an instructor prep about 4 years ago, and I had a instructor candidate say perfect over 45 times just in a 10-minute presentation. And so it can be way overused. As we wrap this up, other distracting mannerisms in this virtual setting, and we could spend 2 hours just talking about all the many distracting mannerisms. This is mostly on the verbal. Clicking or ticking of the tongue, and we don't even know we're doing it. Constantly clearing our throat, coughing, sniffling, and of course I had to throw in touching our face, because that we learned as a result of COVID-19 how hard it is to not touch your face constantly. And unfortunately, I know when we're in meetings, people do back-to-back meetings, and we do need to eat at some point in time. But if you are ever teaching or facilitating a meeting, you should not be eating at that time. As we wrap this up, some people use these in combination. I told you guys I was going to use Rich as an example, so here I'm going to do it in just a second, Rich.
Line it up.
We combine a bunch of these words all into one string. It's not just this word here or that word there. We put them into string. So, all right, let's. I mean, you know what I mean, right? Basically, it says here essentially. Okay, so let's, well, anyway, we're still trying to think and figure out what we're going to say next instead of using a pause. So, I mean, all right, perfect, excellent, okay, let's. And that's where I'm using you as an example, Rich, because you do say excellent a lot, and I love it. Excellent is a great term to use, but also then when you put it in with a string of other words, yeah, we just don't need to do that. So solutions, as I wrap this up, record yourself teaching, which is so easy to do with Zoom, with Teams, and all the many platforms that we have. Record yourself teaching solely for the purpose of you being able to critique yourself. You are your own worst critic. It is tremendous. And over the past year, I've been able to watch myself present. I'm not kidding, over 30 times. And while I've not had many distracting mannerisms over the years, you'd be amazed. Somehow one day you just pick one up. And that one was so for me about this time last year. Speak clearly and concisely. Help us to follow, understand. Be deliberate with your speech. And that's sometimes challenging when we're using some of our local vernacular as well. Biggest one, just use some pauses. I can't overemphasize this one. Give us all time to think. I think actually right now I'm speaking too quickly. So have a peer record or track your distracting mannerisms. That's a great opportunity, because then you're aware, well, whoa, somebody else saw all this. I must really be doing it. And that's how I was able to get rid of all of my okays when I first started teaching. And then practice and work to remove your distracting mannerisms each time you teach. Go back, record yourself at intervals. You'll be surprised when you pick up additional distracting mannerism. Bottom line is, if you're aware of it, you work hard to remove that verbal, repetitive, distracting term or word. You can remove that from your presentation style. Okay.
Thank you, Brett. I just want to let everybody know that Rich and I have been doing a lot of these presentations with Brett this past year, and I think we're mostly the guinea pigs on all of this stuff.
Absolutely. Oh, wait, correct.
You can say absolutely, that works. That works.
Well, not if I use it too much, but it is an excellent response. It's perfect for this opportunity here to move ahead.
Where'd the chat go? There was a chat I saw I wanted to go back to, though. All right, no
Can
worries.
you back up
Can
one?
you see my screen? We're good?
No, where'd the chat go?
So
yeah, we can see your screen.
okay,
Perfect.
so one of the things that's really important is we mentioned these tools in August, and they're powerful, and you can actually go to the ANSTI website and see the presentation on how it went. It's down at the bottom there. You can take a screenshot moment right here. But chat's really, really important, because what chat gives you is the opportunity to get individual verbal feedback from kids without them actually being heard and worrying about how they're going to sound in front of their friends. And then you can evaluate the input that they give you and provide some feedback to that person who maybe is incorrect in their answer. And it's a great tool to do it privately, so that no one really knows that you're giving them feedback. Polls are excellent, because polls give, oh, there's that excellent again. Polls are a great way to get feedback on how you're doing with your teaching. If you don't know what you're doing with your kids, then you're not going to really, all you're basically doing is having a one-way conversation with your students, and that's not very effective. Quizzes are really good. There's some great quizzing software out there that we will mention a little bit later on. There's physical equipment practice. What you can do is you can actually have your students stand up and target in their own room. You can have them get a steering wheel and practice steering. Tim mentioned somebody brought out a vinyl record as their steering wheel for a tool that they could demonstrate push-pull steering. And I was just hoping that it wasn't the Beatles' White Album out of Dad's collection, you know?
It was Star Wars, actually.
Was it Star Wars? Okay.
No, that would have been awful because that's worth a lot of money too.
Yeah. Q&A is really good too, because you can put questions in there that can be answered online, live, or they can be followed up with a written response afterwards. So that's a pretty good deal.
And that's not an actual poll, by the way. That's in the slide, so don't try to answer.
No. The other thing is breakout rooms, really powerful, because you can. When I was teaching school, one of the tools that came out was cooperative learning groups. Think, pair, share. You know, you can have a cooperative group that has a scribe and somebody who's going to report back to the group and so on. And breakout rooms give you that opportunity to create small cooperative learning groups that the students can actually engage in with another group of students. Check this out. It's a great opportunity to go to see what we did in that virtual workshop, or actually what Tim did with the ATSIA staff and ODEC staff, because he shows how to use these things. And Brett was in one of those breakout rooms. And the interesting part was one breakout room did really well, and the other one didn't do quite so well. And you can see going back and forth what you planned for or what you maybe didn't plan for. And it gives you great feedback.
Yeah, it was fun doing that presentation. I just want to say I love chat. Chat is so great tool, and we'll talk more about chat and how we can use that when we go into our questioning techniques. Let's talk about some new tools. As we've gone through doing this multiple times, I can't tell how many virtual classes I've taught now. There's some new things that we can do. And one thing that we can do is, if we're going to use a virtual platform, and you know what, even outside of your virtual platform, in just class, Google Classroom is a great tool, is a way to really bring everything into what we do at Western Oregon. Is we actually do use Google Classroom, and the administrator at Western Oregon calls it the one-stop shop place for your classroom. It's really great. And we'll get into that just a little bit more here in a little bit. And Pear Deck is another one that can kind of interact with your students and ask certain questions, and can ask questions based on what's going on in the chat or in your class there on the screen. And then social media. And this is one where I get pushed back a lot about social media, but we can use social media in our class and use it to our advantage. And this kind of goes into the generation that we're teaching. This is where they're at, so let's meet them where they're at, so that we can teach them the way that they learn and things that they are using all the time. Let's take advantage of these things. We have Discord, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, YouTube. There's obviously a lot more, and we're going to talk about how to use these more here in just a little bit.
So I want to say something real quick here.
Go ahead, Rich.
Second. And that is, there's a coach from Wisconsin, I can't remember his name right now, but he spoke at the St. Louis ATSIA conference. And what he said was, if kids don't learn the way you teach, then teach the way they learn. And so that's what we're talking about now with this virtual classroom and Google Classroom, is that we're trying to create an environment that we can teach the way they learn, so that we accomplish the goal we're trying to do. Go.
Google Classroom. There it is. So one thing it does, it keeps all the assignments organized. It keeps them together. It's in a list. It's in one spot. I don't know if there's anybody like me, but if I'm using papers, it tends to go all over the place. And this way, it can keep it all organized right in one folder. It can set reminders. You can before your class even starts, you can set up the assignments and it will send out reminders to people. And you can set that up before the class even begins on the first day. And you can set it up to where, 3 months into class, however long your class is, it will set a reminder to the students that this assignment's coming, and then it will release it on its own. You can set it up and prepare everything at the start. And the communication can all be in one spot. So even outside of class, there's one place where they're all emailing and it goes to the class, or it can be an individual. And that way the communication is kept in one spot. It's not, well, is it in my email, or is it in text? Did someone call me? Like, because sometimes it's like, where did I get that information from? You have to try and find it. If you do a Google Classroom, it is all right there. You can also save your documents, your assignments, and store it for the next class. You don't have to recreate anything. And that's really, really an important thing, is that you can save it. You can put it off to the side. When you start your next class, you just have to put it right back into Google Classroom, and it's there and it saves it. It's a great place for assessments as well. Again, everything in the same spot. Like I said earlier, a one-stop shop. We want to work smarter, not harder. And that's important. And teaching is a lot of work. So let's be smart about what we're doing so that we are working hard in the correct places. And I know Brett's had quite a bit of experience with Google Classroom. Do you want to add anything to this, Brett?
No, it's just a fantastic tool, great way to track your students. It's more of a asynchronous approach, but you can do all kinds of assignments, quizzings, assessments, track them, constant communication with them. It's just a great tool.
I think the other thing is during my presentation on liability, I mentioned something about documents and record keeping. And this is an excellent way to establish your record keeping so that you don't have to try and do the paper work to follow through. You can just do it in Google Classroom.
Work smarter, not harder.
Bingo.
Let's move on to Pear Deck.
So Pear Deck's a really amazing thing because it works with Google, and and what it does is it allows you to connect effectively with the students and create interactive type of presentations where they can actually respond to your presentation online. And it's wonderful. It's a powerful tool. I don't use it because I haven't been teaching teens for a while, but I would strongly recommend you take a look at this YouTube video on how to use Pear Deck. And then I'd start talking to your school district about buying it as an opportunity for your school, because it's not cheap. So give yourself a chance here and take a look at this.
Absolutely. And now it's time for a poll question. What is not a benefit to Google Classroom? There it is. Again, if you can't see it, try and put in chat. I know we've had some struggles, but a few people can get in with chat.
While you're taking the poll question, one of the things I will say is that that Brett just put in the ANSTI workshop information. We want to thank ANSTI for supporting this particular presentation, because the National Stakeholders Group has really been behind developing creative ways to engage driver educators so that we can keep the highest standard possible in teaching our teens. I see Brett's got D here. That's great. Same with Todd and Garth Rushford. It looks like it's working.
We got chat back?
It looks like it.
Good. Well, I got another chat question I'll use, but I think we're supposed to break it.
I have been messing with it this whole time. I think I got it fixed.
I think you did. Right. Thanks a million.
Thank you,
All right,
Audrey.
let's go back and do my part again.
I don't think we have time.
All they have to do is keep track of my presentation, and they can just mark things that I repeat over and over and over again.
Are we supposed to have a break at 3:55 for 5 minutes? Is that true or not true?
That's completely up to you guys. It's not on the schedule, so it's up to you.
Not on the schedule? Well,
No, I didn't put it a break on the schedule.
Yeah.
We're powering through.
we're powering through. That's Audrey says powering through. So there we go. That's what we're gonna do.
Okay.
Awesome.
Do we have a total or a percentage on the on the poll question.
Got a lot of D's coming in chat though.
A lot of D's.
Yeah, it's good to
Quite
see the
honest,
chat rolling. Good, good.
An E, I don't think that exists.
Rich Gittins, he's got it, you know.
I'm not hearing anything if how many we got, but I think we're good. I think we're going to move on.
Nice.
Let's talk about social media. But before we jump in that, like I said, I have a chat question since I see that chat is working. What tools do you use when you're teaching in a virtual setting? Because Rich and we don't know everything. Brett doesn't know everything. We have some ideas, ways to help, but I like to come to these things and learn something from other people who've been doing this, because there's some great ideas out there. Canvas, I heard that. Loom videos.
Yep.
I haven't heard of Loom videos. I'll have to look that up.
Yeah.
Have you, Rich, Brett, you heard of Loom videos?
No.
I've not heard of it, but we'll give it a look when we're
Your
done.
pod?
Yeah. Google Slides and Kahoots, Go Noodle, those are all great. Nearpod, that's another
Loom
good one.
videos.
Video.
Huh. Interesting.
Oh, it's like a,
Oh, he already Googled it.
well, heck yeah, I had to find out real quick. Looks like it's a video meeting messaging.
Or whatever you were doing on your screen, you can talk at the same time. Huh. Oh. Well, that's
I
good.
teach, or I
like
taught
that.
with Canvas at the university and community college level. It's a great learning management system.
Social media, let's go there. I always get pushback on this, but again, meet them where they're at. They use social media. We can use it for class discussion outside of class. The last class that I taught, I got the Discord app on my computer and created discussions there. And half the class, because I don't require them to be part of like this Discord group, half the class was part of it. And we were able to talk about driver education outside of class. When what I would do is on like a Thursday, I would just type in a question. What is the craziest driving scenario you saw in the past week? And you get these responses. And then you can ask questions about maybe what should the driver have done differently? What should you, or maybe it was your parent driving, what could they have done differently? How could you have kept yourself safe? And you can create this conversation outside of class, talking about driver education. The more that we can engage them with driver education and traffic safety, the better it's going to be. Take advantage of this. Now, I understand there's people that, not people, forget what I said. I understand there is a risk when we're bringing in social media, and that you're going to use your own account and you might put something up there that you don't want the students to see, or privacy because you don't want your spouse or your kids or something like that on social media, and then all your students are seeing that. And it's really important that we use a school accounts on these things. Make sure it's a school account. That way you're protected. The only things that are going to get put up there are school related things, but also link accounts. If your state organization, let's say it's Utah Driver Education in the state, they have a Twitter account, you can actually have them use Twitter to bring in is the Department of Education here in Utah? Is that right? Yeah. Okay.
That's correct.
Yeah. So Department of Education on their Twitter, you can have them like hashtag things that the Department of Education have hashtagged. And now you're having the state come in and you're having these students be part of the state Department of Education for driver education. And the more we can do things like that, the better we're going to be. And in Western Oregon, we're in charge of making the curriculum. We're putting in social media, and we are going to have hashtags, and we're going to have everybody hashtagging this certain quote or line, and then everybody's going to see it. We're going to have students throughout the state that are going to see these different types of driver education, assignments or projects that's happening throughout the state. So someone in Portland can see what somebody down in Medford, which is like 4.5 hours away, is doing. And it's going to be a great tool. Videos. They like to make videos.
Can I step in for just a second?
No,
Collaboration is so powerful for driver education. Gives the kids the opportunity to share those things. I would say
Absolutely.
there's sometimes a danger in social media, excuse me. So make sure your administrator has access to that, so that there's no question about what you're doing in your social media with your students. Sorry, that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Have them make videos. Have it be a driver ed project. Kids these days, they love making videos. They're doing it all the time anyway. They're making all these TikTok videos and YouTubes and everything. I have my 12-year-old son is wanting to make this YouTube channel, and he wants to put his animation that he's making onto YouTube. And it's like, okay, go ahead. That's cool, because it's encouraging him to do something that he really wants to do. We can do the same thing in driver education. Have him make a TikTok video. They can share it in class. You know, have a class YouTube channel. They can make videos and put it into the YouTube channel. They can do something like that. Extra credit work, and those videos could be extra credit work. If they're going to do something on Instagram or Twitter, give them extra credit for the work that they do. Get creative. Get creative. This generation, they love to be creative. So let's get creative with them. And one thing that they're going to love is that you're trying. If you're trying new things, it might fail. That's okay. They like change. Try it. Get creative with it. Have some fun with it. And you might actually find that you found something that's very, very successful and useful in teaching driver education.
So one thing I would say about the video is to make sure that there's some disclaimers about where they're shooting their video. They're not standing in the middle of the intersection shooting a video. You want them to stand on the side, actually have very obvious type of clothing that indicates that they're there. And that way you can reduce your liability associated with that. But let's deal with the lag issues that come first. You know, it's fun to do class activities where everybody's doing exactly the same thing. But there's a video that we show in our program about when a car's at its transition peg, and everybody's supposed to say now. And so when you're showing the video, it's grand, but it's playing out at different speeds and different locations on the video at the same time, or at different times. And so when you ask the class to go, say now when it crosses the transition peg, and you get this no with the kids. And so it's really got to, you've got to deal with that in a way that's creative and understand that they all can't do exactly the same thing at the same time. Following distance, we have a video where they have to count off following distance, where they see an object that the car passes, and then it's 1001, up to 1004. And the same problem, there's video lag, and you have to make sure that you build into it in some way so that the students don't get caught being later than other students or earlier. Targeting, great opportunity. Oh my gosh. Targeting is the #1 thing we want kids to do, because we want them to take the car to where they are, to their target. And you can do targeting activities with kids at their homes. You can have them stand up and pick a spot on the wall. Then you can see them turn their head and then turn their body. And you can see that they can use that in their turning. You can talk about picking a point out in front of them and describing what the target is, and then say, okay, pick a target to the left, and do the same thing about look to the target and then turn to the target. Next slide, Tim.
Yeah, one thing I like to do with the targeting is tell them, pick something in your room and pick a target. And then you just watch them, they turn and then they move their head. And then it's like, hey, are you supposed to turn your head before you turn the wheel? Let's redo it. And then they're holding the steering wheel and you see them go like this and then turn. And that's one way we can do activities. Like we don't just get rid of activities because we're in a virtual setting. We might have to adapt and change how we do them, but we are still going to do them. It's so important. Get them up. Don't just let them sit there. Make them stand up and get them out of their seat. Well, I don't know what I was going to combine like 3 words there.
Yeah, I could tell. It was one of those things where it just kind of came together. It was a new word, Tim. I was impressed.
I'll just be real. That's exactly what happened. Effective questioning techniques. Jump ball. And this one, we just throw out a question to everybody. You know, all are involved, and classroom management. And the way this works is, and like I said, I love chat. I love chat. You throw out a question to the whole entire group. And in person, it used to be that only the people that wanted to talk were going to answer these questions. And it's the easiest question to ask as the teacher. You don't have to, there's no efforting. You just ask the question and off it goes. But what I've realized in this virtual setting, everybody gets involved. Everybody answers a question. It's part of our classroom management. Because you can see the names come through on chat. So you're like, okay, I don't think that person's paying attention. Let's say it's Billy Bob is not paying attention. You don't think that Billy Bob's paying attention. Ask a question, tell him put in chat, see what comes. And if Billy Bob isn't answering, then you know Billy Bob's not paying attention. That's important. You can manage the class because then you can say, remember, everybody needs to answer. You might be able to chat Billy Bob privately, or you can just say, hey, Billy Bob, what's your answer? And what I've realized is with the shy student, they are going to answer these questions more likely than if they were in person. So you can get everybody involved. It doesn't just become the question that you have to you only ask a few times and you only get the overeager, extroverted people are going to answer. And I've realized that that is one thing that makes virtual training better. And I've realized that the important things, I ask those questions throughout the classes. And I ask them multiple times. I ask them in different ways, always gets the same answer. When I get them behind the wheel, they all remember it because they have to keep typing it in to chat. And that's important because they do have short attention spans. So we have to keep them doing something. If we just talk, they are not going to pay attention. Sometimes I have my students, they lean forward and they chat. Then they sit back. 5 seconds later, they have to lean forward, type in another thing. And then they come back. And I just have them keep on doing that. And I will admit that I do rely on chat too much sometimes. I do have to mix it up. Important not just to ask the same type of question. What other questioning techniques do we have besides jump ball? Go ahead and put that in chat. I'm not seeing anything come through. Everybody still with me? All right, Socratic.
Yeah.
That's Rich's favorite right there. Yeah. Directed questions. Yeah. Just ask a person. Surveys. Okay. It's a good one. Yeah. So pre-directed is a good one. Polls are another great one we can use in a virtual setting. Overhead direct. And I'm gonna let Rich talk about this because Rich loves this. So
It's
Rich,
one of my favorites. That's one of my favorites. Overhead directed questions are simply that you're going to say, I want everybody to think about, what's a good target on a roadway. And in southern Utah, that might be a little bit difficult because I don't think there's a lot of trees on the side of the road. But anyway, so everybody think about what's a good target. And then what you do is you actually ask a student to unmute and share their answer. What's the advantage of using a questioning strategy like that? Well, it turns out the advantage is that every single person is thinking about the answer. And what Johnny just did is they verified that their answer was correct. And so everybody's doing this. And Madeline Hunter calls it active participation. It's called covert active participation. Well, we really don't know what's going on in their head, but they're thinking. They're thinking, they're processing, they're getting the answer ready because you might be the one that they might be the one you call on. And so everybody's going to be ready to participate. So I would say my favorite is the overhead directed question because I'm going to give them a chance to answer or think about, process it before they actually put the answer in. Then there's another that you can Another thing that you can do is that you can actually just have everybody type their answer in chat. So then you're going to get a response from all of the different kinds of a response from all your students in the class.
Yeah,
Okay.
what I mentioned earlier was Brett loves chat waterfalls. Once
Yeah.
everybody put the answer in chat, but don't hit enter until he says to, and then he gets 30 answers at once. And that's a good way to manage the class, because if you see everything come through in like 5 seconds, then you know everybody's paying attention. But if there's 2 or 3 people that are behind the 8 ball to say, then you know they're not as engaged as they should be. And I feel like Brett wants to say something since he unmuted.
Yeah, but one of the challenges in doing chat waterfall is you have to give them ample time. Again, back to those pauses in which to put their answer in, because sometimes they do need to formulate an answer. So always make sure you give ample time in any chat type situation in responding to a question, time to respond and put their answer in and then hit enter. But the nice thing about the chat waterfall is you tell them, put in their answer, wait, give them time. And then now everybody hit enter at the same time, and you don't get people just copying or dittoing what others said.
Dittoing. Have you had people put ditto in chat?
Yeah. You want them to think for themselves. Yep.
Another question, or another thing about questioning techniques that we want to realize is open and closed. We want to stay away from the closed questions. We want more open-ended. Now, can we ask closed-ended questions? Yes, but they should lead to an open-ended question. Ask the students. One question you can ask them: is your front zone open or closed? That's a closed-ended question. There's one answer: closed. Why is it closed? Now it becomes open-ended. So you're leading it in there. One questioning technique, that's not a technique, but one way I see instructors question, and it just drives me crazy, is when they go, the front zone is open, right?
Yeah.
I was like, yep, absolutely. You just gave them the answer. Like, it was no thinking. They're always going to agree with you if you say right or yes or correct. And I see that all the time. Stay away from putting that at the end. Just ask the question and leave it. And it goes back to those verbal mannerisms, trying to get, making sure everybody's, what did you call it, Brett? Trying to see if you're right. Like, oh, okay, I'm spacing right now.
Affirmation.
You say right or affirmation. That's
Yeah, affirmation.
Yeah, getting affirmation.
Brett.
Yeah, I wasn't, apparently.
So I like to have more open-ended questions because it stimulates a lot more conversation amongst the students. And
Absolutely.
We call it inquiry style questions. For instance, what kinds of things might close your front zone? Or why would your front zone be open on a highway? Or you see a curve approaching. What kinds of steps might you take to enter that curve? So, I mean, there's a whole bunch of things that you can get out of the kids because you're causing them to think. And that's so powerful to get them to think. All right.
One of my favorite questions is, how would you respond and then give this situation?
Yes.
You can kind of create
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Gen Z, you got to remember, I started teaching back in 1978. So I've gone through several iterations of generations. And I will tell you, Gen Z are a fascinating group of students because they're all about technology. They love their technology. If you see them, they always have their cell phone handy with them. They're talking on it, or they're texting. More importantly, they're texting on it. They're doing research with it and so on. They love people, not in the virtual world. They love people being in their presence. Do you think this last pandemic just really twisted their noodle just a little bit? They love being in the presence of other people because they're interacting. They're sharing back and forth. The other thing that we have to remember is Gen Z folks like to be heard. They want to be heard. And chat gives us a chance to hear from them, but they also can respond in polls. They can even respond in unmuting their audio and talk in class. It's pretty powerful. I will tell you, they're a bit competitive. They do like to compete with one another and with themselves. I think that's pretty important. Competitive so that they feel like they've won. or that they've achieved something. I think that's better than winning. I think they just like to achieve something. The other thing is they love change. They love change. And this pandemic has given them an opportunity to change in ways they never thought they would ever experience.
I think it's given us all the ability to change.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Adapt.
Adapt. It's a better word. Change scares people. Adapt, people like that word.
Yep. Have to adapt. Adapt and overcome.
We're gonna go into each one of those things that Rich just talked about a little bit more in detail. So the first one is they're all about technology. They love the next new thing. They can't wait to get the new phone, the new tablet, new computer, what's the new next app, all those things. They love it. This is the first generation that has ever existed that's always had smartphones, YouTube, and Google. I remember growing up in a house without internet. And when I tell my kids that, they're like, wait, you didn't have internet back when you were a kid? No. And they're like, are you from the dinosaur age? I'm like, yep, that's me from the dinosaur age. But the technology is there. My 3-year-old can actually just skip ads on YouTube when she watches, like she just knows. She's like, I hate ads. It's like, oh man, you're listening to your brothers way too much.
Yeah.
But if we can use this technology, they're going to be more engaged because this is their life. This is what they've grown up with. And I get instructors and teachers that say that they need to learn without technology. They need to do this without technology. But here's the reality of it is their life is engrossed in technology. I had one instructor tell me that they do not allow the phones or anything around, and they have to take handwritten notes in class so they can learn how to take notes when they're in meetings, when they're in work, when they're adults. And my thought is, I don't think that's the place for driver education. I think that's the place for maybe your language arts classes. Probably is probably where that should be, because we need to do our best job that we can do to ensure that they can drive as safely as they can. So let's take advantage of everything that we have. Allow them to use their phones. There's ways we can use the phone in class. We talked about screenshot mode. If you're in person, they can take pictures of the slides, what's going on. They can make videos with these things in class. They can do research. You can tell them pull out their phones and do research. And the thing is if you take their phone away for the class, guess what they're thinking about all the time is their phone. And what are they missing out on? It's called FOMO, fear of missing out. If they just have their phone with them, they're more likely going to be thinking about other things because they can see or feel that something's happening. It doesn't matter if they glance their phone for 2 seconds. We do that as adults all the time. And they are so much better at looking at their phone and listening than we are. If I look at my phone and I'm doing something on my phone and I have someone talking to me, I have to stop them from talking. I can't listen to you and actually text at the same time. But they can. It's unbelievable. Are you trying to say Snapchatted me? Is that what you're saying? Did I just skip something? No.
So I want to go back to technology for just a second. You don't have to back the slide up. But
Okay.
in my chemistry class when I was in college, we didn't have calculators. We had slide rules. So that's how old I am when it comes to technology. And we've gone through all these iterations. But I will say, for an old guy with silver hair, I am an early adopter of technology. So I just love technology and I love to use it. My wife will tell you I spend way too much money on technology. I have 3 monitors here that I use for my meetings and that sort of stuff. And I just love it. So I think they love people. And like I said earlier, it's not just social media. They don't want to just continue to do Snapchat or TikTok or any of those things. They'll do them because they get a lot of satisfaction out of them. But at the same time, they love just being with people. Physical presence is very, very important. And you can see them hanging out in the mall. Now, here's the interesting part. You take 10 kids, you put them together. Here's what all of them are doing sometime during the conversation of being in that group. And part of it is because they're connecting with those that are distant as well. They're collaborative. They love to work together. My goodness, they love actually spending time on the same projects, the same ideas, and so on. And it's amazing. They come up with wonderful things. You take the gestalt of the moment, that the sum of the whole, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. They put the things together and they come up with brilliant ideas. And we need to honor that because they're pretty clever kids. Break them into small groups. That collaborative work comes together and work on a project together. The idea of working on a project has to be something where it's not where one person does all the work and the other ones go along for the ride, which was happening quite a bit when we first started doing group projects and collaborative circles and cooperative groups. I think it's changed because now you can give kids the opportunity to assign various roles that they'll love to do, because now maybe it's a whole video arcade of different things that they've videoed and put together and identified the critical risk factors that are associated with that driving environment. Wonderful project. And they're all working together on it to make it happen. Next slide.
I will say, Rich, you said you were silver hair, but I'd rather be silver haired than no haired. So,
well, yeah, and mine's a little wild right now. I don't know why. I think maybe it's the COVID cut that I've been dealing with lately. So
they want to be heard. I think what's going on in our country right now actually shows they do want to be heard. There is a lot of protests going on throughout this past year, and a lot of it is Gen Z. And you might think, oh yeah, well they're destroying this city or that city. Well, that's not true. That's a very, very small group. Most of this Gen Z protesting is very peaceful, and that is awesome. You want to peacefully protest whatever it is, that's your right. You can do that, and they want to be heard. And the thing is they have a lot of information at their fingertips because they have this. And I love Google, by the way. It has saved me from so many arguments with my wife because we get into a conversation and we can just Google the answer and we don't have to fight about it and then go look it up like in an encyclopedia. We can just Google it before the fight even happens. And it's like, okay. And I'll be honest, I lose 90% of the time to my wife, but they have all that at their fingertips. They can look all this stuff up. They know what's going on in the world. They might be a little, naive about it because of their age, but they know what's going on. I remember the late 80s, early 90s when I was growing up, and I barely knew anything that happened outside of my own town. Maybe I knew what was going on in Portland, and that was it. I remember getting information one time about the Gulf War. And we're like, why are we even there? And we're like, we don't know. And we just went off and played. But they get all their information instantly. And it's at their fingertips. They can look up anything and find out what's going on in any country. And because of that, they want to be heard. Because they have a lot of information, more information than we did about what's going on. Let them talk and listen to them. If you are going to let them talk and you're going to listen, they're going to respect you. They don't have to agree with them. In fact, if any student ever starts going off on a little tangent, about and bringing all this political stuff, you just have to redirect that and understand you have to keep in mind classroom management, but let them talk. Let them say what they think. And I get this all the time when they're talking about driving, they'll talk about, well, this is what my parent does. And they'll have these arguments for why they think they should do that. Let them say that. It might be wrong, but let them talk. And when you let them talk, and then you can come back and go point by point about why the way that we're teaching is safer and better, they're going to listen more. Instead of just shutting them down, you shut them down, they're not going to listen because they do want to be heard.
Well, they are competitive. Oh my goodness, they compete for everything. They do a lot of different, look at the video gaming that these kids do. And they're doing VoIP with other kids in different states and even different countries. And they're competing on that to try and sometimes they form these teams that they work together to try and defeat the team from a different state. It's phenomenal, the ability of things or the opportunity for things for them to do. The world has really shrunk. When I was younger, when he talks about when he was a kid, I would tell you, when I was a kid, I grew up in Albany, Oregon, and it was pretty much my world. I didn't know much about anything outside of that. Corvallis, 10 miles away, was I mean, it was an amazing trip to go over there and to see the wonderful Oregon State University. I just had to put that in, Tim, because my Beavers logo is back there, just so you know. They love quiz games. We're going to talk about something called Kahoot in just a minute, but quiz games are awesome because they can compete for who's going to win a prize. And then they can actually get a trophy at the end of the year or whatever. And then you can have a challenge question daily. And that gives them a chance to even use their technology to look up the data or the question on that and gather information from multiple sources, not just one source, about what they're learning or what they're going to be learning about today in that day. Okay. So
yeah, the challenge question doesn't have to be driver relayed. You just have it on the board, just right there. It can be anything, and you can give a prize for whoever gets it right or whoever gets it correct first time, something like that. They love change. They love technology, which we talked about, and technology is always changing. And so, of course, they're going to love change. It only makes sense. What I see is in driver education, for the most part, we like the way we do it. We want to keep doing it the way we do it because that's how it's worked for us in the past.
can I say something, Tim, real quick? I worked with a lot of teachers. Sorry. Worked with a lot of teachers who have been in the business for a really long time. And they say, I can't change. The kids are going to have to adapt to me. It's easier for them to adapt to me than it is for me to adapt to every single student. And I would say that's an effective strategy to really work with your kids. So they love change. You got to change with them.
Don't ever apologize for interrupting, Rich. A lot of wisdom coming from you. So let's hear it.
Well, thanks. I appreciate you that you recognize that, but I got to be careful with my excellence and perfects.
I feel like that was a humble brag right there.
I know.
The motto is, how can we make it better? The phone is great. It's awesome. How can we make it better? This app is great. How can we make it better? How can we make cars better? That's the motto. And what Rich talked about is it's hard for us to change. And so they're going to have to change with us or adapt with us. It is ineffective because they're not going to. This is the way they are. It's easier for one person to adapt than a whole class to adapt. Just try, mix it up, try new things. They'll appreciate it because they like to see things that are different. They love mixing it up. Just try it out. And you know what you can do is just tell them, I am going to try this. I've never done this before. This class is my guinea pig class. Guinea pigs are cute, lab rats, or whatever it is that you want to choose. Tell me how it works.
Yeah.
And just tell them, be honest, give me honest feedback. Did it work? Did it not work? If it worked, how can we make it better? If it didn't work, how can we make it work? Get that information. They'll be honest with you. Remember, they want to be heard and they love change. Let's combine that. Try something out, get feedback from them. And then the next class, implement that feedback on that activity or whatever it is that you tried that was new. And then have them do the same thing. And before you know it, you're going to have something that's going to be great, that's going to work for all your classes. Let them give feedback, mix it up, have some fun. Try and be a little bit different. They don't want to go to the same class that they've been going to the whole time, just a different subject where the teacher just talks. Another poll question. Which of these characteristics is more like Gen Z? Again, if you cannot see it, go ahead and put the answer into chat. And I need to move the chat box. There we go.
Okay, that's fine. This is good. No, I'm good.
Todd, that's true with esports, yeah. People are like, what's esports? Esports is where they literally play games for sport. So Fortnite, very popular game. They can fill up an arena and these people are watching people play video games. That doesn't register in my brain.
Not at mine either.
Watch people play video games. So boring. My kids love to watch YouTube, and what they watch is somebody playing Minecraft. They'll do that all day if I would let them. And I'm telling you, it is the most annoying thing for me. But that's who they are. And, I did other things. I played video games, but watching play video games, I just don't understand.
We played fire up in the backyard with a softball and a baseball bat, and we stood around trying to, the person who could catch the ball, I guess, scored a certain amount of points, and then you could be the one go up and hit the ball. And some of you guys might recognize that. I don't think Tim's ever played fly up. Just saying.
I played 500, I guess, but no. I loved what Gary said. We annoyed our parents too. Yes, we did. Yes, we did. And that's funny that you say that, because we're going right in to talk more about this, about annoying your parents, and it'll make sense in just a little bit. I think we're going to move on from this poll question, and we are going to jump into how to build relationships on Zoom. Now, this one isn't really like Zoom related. It's just basic classroom. Learn their names. And you would think that it'd be very easy on Zoom to learn their name because the name is literally right there. But what happens is we tend to rely on the name on the screen. So if we see them for a drive, we don't remember their names. If they come into the building, we don't know. We're like, I recognize that person, but I don't remember their name. Learn their names. It's very, very important. If you learn their name, they're going to feel more valued by you. Another thing I like to do is ask about what is happening behind them.
This is grand.
It's so fun. So fun. If there's a cool poster or a poster that confuses you, something like that, it is a great way to kind of get to know them a little bit. And they might have a story or something about it. And again, make sure it's quick. I had one class where there was a mom that every single day, it was a 1 to 4 class. At 2 o'clock, she brought food to her son. And I would ask the student, his name was Raul. I go, Raul, what did your mom bring you? And the mom, at first, she was like all embarrassed. Oh man, I can't believe they saw me. And then he would tell me what the mom brought him. And it sounded so good every single time. I was always so jealous. Then after a few classes, the mom would like wave, and then by the end of the class, the mom would dance in the background. Like she was so excited. And everybody in the whole class, they saw it, they were laughing, they loved it. It was a great time. If you can pull some stuff in that's happening behind them, it does kind of build some rapport with them. Another thing it does is it reminds them that you can see them.
The one thing that Tim hasn't done is he hasn't recognized that I do have my beaver flag on the back here.
So, I choose to ignore it.
I know you do, but I thought I would bring it up just to kind of point out that there are certain things behind me that are very important.
Yeah, you get one Elite 8 run, and then you think you're all awesome with the Beavers. I get it. Break up the content. It can't be 100% driver ed all the time. I don't know if you've noticed, but we've kind of been breaking up the content as well. We just did it. Nothing long. It's short. It's maybe a line or two, something like that. But that's important. We cannot go 100% the whole time. It will overload them. We have to break it up. Make sure it's short, though. It's very easy to kind of go off on a tangent, but break it up. Make sure you're controlling yourself as you go through that. Ask random chat questions for them to put in chat. It could be something at the beginning as they're logging on. I had a student this last class. We got talking about music before one of our drives. And he asked me who my favorite band was, and I told him it was Judah and the Lion. That was my favorite band. Went into Zoom later that day for class. A few students were there. That same student was there, and he said, I looked up Judah and the Lion, and they were pretty good. And I was like, yeah, they're awesome. And then everybody else was like, what's Judah and the Lion? And then so I just was able to put in chat. It's my favorite music group. Who's your favorite music group? And you have all these people bringing all these questions about their music group, and it's all happening before class. And what happens is when you get to know their interests a little bit, they connect with you, even if they don't like Julian Lion or whatever. I had one student who told me their favorite band name was Rainbow Kitten Surprise. I was like, that's a band name? I don't understand, but they wanted me to listen to Rainbow Kitten Surprise, and I did, and it wasn't very good. So way it goes. Allow them to use their humor. They are funny people. They are funny. Again, can we get too far gone? Yes, we can. We have to keep classroom management in play here, but don't let the class be so serious that they can't make a joke here and there. If somebody puts something funny in chat, I point it out. I just did with Gary. We annoyed our parents too. I thought that was hilarious. I laughed. I brought it up. Do the same thing with your students, and you'll find that those students will make a few jokes during class, and that's okay, but they're going to like you better too. And if they like you, they're going to listen, and they're going to try and apply what you're teaching them. Give positive feedback for answers. And again, if it's in chat, maybe if you don't do a chat waterfall, who gets the correct answer first as they put it into chat, and you can kind of make it a game, but make sure you praise them for trying to answer stuff in chat or being the first one. And that way they're going to feel good about themselves. We talk about in instructor training is positive feedback. Find ways to always give positive feedback. And it doesn't always have to be that they get a correct answer. It can be other things as well.
I want to go back to one other thing. Learning your names. I always did the Cheers motto of classroom management, and that is a place where everybody knows your name. And kids just love it when you actually respond to them with their name. And I can't emphasize that enough. And that's true in person or on Zoom. It doesn't matter. If you know their names, they are going to be much more open to the idea of sharing, because they at least now know you care enough to know their names. When I'm teaching teens, one of the things I do is I try to get all of their names within one classroom session and where they are and how they show up. Now, it changes a little bit on Zoom, but I really try to make sure that I know each one of the kids' names the next time we show up. What are you smiling about, Tim?
I was just reading the chat. It's making me laugh. So Robert Reeder says, but when you criticize it, watching the video games, they remind us that we watch people play basketball. I never even thought of that ever, but it's so true. I'll just sit there watching football. Yeah. And then Steven has probably never played pickle either. Maybe? What's pickle, Rich? Do you know what pickle is?
There's several different definitions, but I think it's a baseball term.
It's in a rundown. That'd be pickle. Pickleball. I played pickleball before, and I've been in quite a few pickles while playing baseball. And my coach
been in a pickle if we don't finish this presentation on time as well.
I got it. Building relationships, Zoom or in person. Want to meet them where they are at. We've talked about that so many times. We've talked about the music, lingo.
Yeah, come on. Get it out there, brother.
Come with them. This is something I'm going to ask you to put in chat. Hopefully we can get some people that can answer this. Gen Z lingo, weird flex, but okay. What does that mean?
You might want to repeat it.
Weird flex, but okay. What does that mean? I'm not seeing any answers come through. But that's okay. I'm just going to tell you what it means. It means that's a weird thing to brag about, but whatever. Yeah, there it is. Robert, nice job. There you go. Yeah, no idea.
No idea.
I love you, Donnie. That's true. When he said that, I didn't have a clue.
No idea, or sorry, I just read no idea. No cap means you're not lying. Now, why did they say it that way? I have no idea, but that's how they talk. And I had one class that when someone said no cap, and I was like, what are you talking about? No cap. They told me what it meant, and they told me how to use it. And so it was just a break time. We spent 5 minutes. They're teaching me some things that I could say. A week later, perfect moment came up, and I just went, no cap. the whole class erupted in laughter. They loved it. Now, do I sound cool saying it? Of course not. I'm a middle-aged bald guy. I don't sound cool saying it, but they appreciate that I'm trying to meet them where they're at. And what somebody said is that we annoyed our parents too. Yeah, they didn't like the way we talked either when I was a kid. I don't know about Rich's, that generation, but my parents like, why do you always talk like that? I'm like, that's just how we talk. I don't know.
We had terms like cool, man, just cool, or that's heavy, man. Really heavy.
Groovy.
Every generation has its lingo, and it's things that we say that's different than other generations. And why are we trying to change that? Let them have it and try and say some things. They'll appreciate it. I love throwing in some Gen Z lingo in the middle of my teaching, and it just throws them off, and they laugh and they love it. Now, if I try and do it all the time, then I'm trying too hard. Just, a few times, throw it in. It's
Yeah.
great. Get to know them. What school they go to, their hobbies, what their plans. They plan to go to college or trade school or go to work. If you try to get to know them as a person, they're going to more likely listen to you and what you have to say. I think that's really, really important. One thing is we don't want to do is talk down to them. We don't want to be like, you're the student and I'm the teacher. No, it needs to be, we're more at an even level. I'm not going to talk down to you. Yes, we still have the authority. We're still in charge of this class, but I'm going to treat you like the young adult that you are. And this is part of it. Don't try and change who they are. Try and meet them where they're at so that we can have that interaction and connection with them.
So we have been doing what we call synchronous learning today, where we were sitting here and we were loading out ideas throughout this whole entire time. This whole conference has been synchronous learning because it's given you an opportunity of real-time interaction with you and the presenter. Now, in a smaller class, when you have 30 students or less, I think, is it 30, Tim, or do you go at 20, 24?
We do 24.
Okay. So if we do 24 students or less, it's a lot easier to be able to interact with them and catch their responses and also their questions and their answers to your questions. You deliver information as if it was a traditional classroom. And that's what we've been trying to do today. Now, we may have accomplished that and maybe we haven't. We can find out how they're doing in real time, and we can monitor and adjust our teaching. Wait, monitor and adjust? That sounds like another Madeline Hunter term. It's if I'm getting information from my students that they aren't getting it, that's called there's formal. I can't even think of it now. It's age right now, but it's real time learning what they're doing, and then we adjust our teaching. So I think it's powerful that we can monitor and adjust our teaching. And it's formative evaluation. That's what it is. We're forming ideas as to what they're learning, and then we're changing our teaching just to make sure that they pick up that information. That's synchronous learning. And the next one we have is called asynchronous learning. And I have designed classes. My major was in my master's degree was instructional design for online learning. And the majority of it was asynchronous learning, meaning they gave us something to study, to look at, videos to watch, interactions to participate on discussion questions and that sort of stuff. And we were able to pick up information from them and each other. And we used kind of this andragogic kind of learning where we used our life experiences to share information back and forth. Because all of us were educators at one time or another, we were able to share what kinds of tools we used as teachers. Students complete and submit assignments sometimes without actually interacting with the teacher. Asynchronous learning isn't the best in some respects because it means you have to have a fairly motivated student to work with that. And if they're not motivated to learn and to do the work on their own, then I got to tell you, they're not going to do real well with an asynchronous environment. Students do need support. They really do need support. And that's where check-ins come in on a regular basis to make sure that students are getting the information they need or the help they need to be successful with that particular form of learning. One of the things that I discovered when I was doing my research was that, online learning is pretty good And we've gotten a lot of tools. I want to refer you to Tanya Easterwood in North Carolina, who runs their online program. And my gosh, they have such a wonderful learning environment that is both synchronous and asynchronous. The best way to really get the most out of things is to combine both forms of learning and teaching. Thanks, Brett.
Yeah, I would agree with that. We at Western Oregon, we do asynchronous and asynchronous, and I really like it. Some of it's on Zoom, some of it is in person, and they always have assignments and things to work on outside of our class. And so what they're doing is they're taking what they've learned and they're trying to apply it into their real life situations. So I like the asynchronous and synchronous together.
You really have to have both if you really want to maximize the online learning.
Mhm.
If you don't have it, then you're going to rely too heavily on one type or one form. And I will say that the students get bored with that kind of thing. Mix it up, weave them together, give them the opportunity to do a little bit of work on their own. And I will tell you, you will maximize the learning with your students.
Yeah, we've been having a lot of conversations on really trying to do a better job of defining or giving an example of a blended or a hybrid program, whatever term you use, that involves some traditional classroom. It involves some asynchronous e-learning type approach, virtual setting, a course behind the wheel, parent guardian seminars, important, but also engaging parents throughout the entire driver education process. And really, because they have a lot to do with gaining some experience, getting exposure of their teens during the learning to drive experience. But we really do need, I think, better define this whole blended or hybrid learning approach, because virtual is here to stay. I truly believe that. We're going to do some portion, maybe not all of it, but there are portions, as Tim and Rich have both said, we can do a better job in a virtual setting than perhaps we can in the classroom, and vice versa, of course.
Yeah, I agree. It's here to stay. I think what's happened with COVID is it's been hard. It's been difficult for a lot of people, but I think we found ways to do things a little bit better and more efficient. And I think this virtual platform is one of those things that it will be a part of our training from here on out.
Yeah,
Right.
Part, not all.
On the ANSTI website, you guys mentioned the recording, a couple of the recordings we did, and how you can show recorded driving scenes and actually do commentary driving and so many other things in a virtual setting, because it's right in front of them on their screen, as opposed to being on a large screen in a classroom. It's something they can actually get engrossed in. They can really engage what's on their screen.
And they can always go back and look at
Immersed.
something. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, so we are done with the show itself. And at this point in time, would love to get some questions and answers. So if you could go to the Q&A and type your answers in there, or you could also do it in chat, and we'll try and catch your questions as much as possible. We'd like to invite Audra back in as well, so that if there's anything that comes up that she needs to answer, then she'll be available for that. So let her rip, Tater Chip. Come on, give us some questions.
And then Brett just put the ANSTI webinars there in chat, the link there. It's a great website. Has a lot of information to help us in our job. It's a great resource.
That group of leaders have done an amazing job in dealing with the novice teen driving standards, dealing with a bunch of other issues that have come up. And I think they have done just an amazing job. And I encourage you to take advantage of the good things that they've done. And guess what? It's free. It's been paid for. And so all you're going to do is log in and get the information. So
You don't have to log in. Just go to the site.
Well,
and watch any of the recordings. Yeah. They're just there.
Yeah. Any questions? We must have wowed them. What's the best resource for learning about Zoom? That's, you know what I always did is I just got me a copy and started working, just opened it up, had a group call with some friends, and practiced and did some fun stuff. I will tell you the things that Tim mentioned, especially the breakout rooms. They're only available if you purchase the resource up to, I think it's at least 30 participants or something like that. So you need to maybe upgrade your, it's $9.99 a month, but it's really worth it. You can also do Google Meet, which is part of Google Classroom, and that's another tool that you can use and practice with your kids.
But
And
there's
Zoom
also
has
recordings on Zoom's website. When you go to Anstey's early, about this time last year, we did a recording on how to use Zoom, but Zoom has morphed since then. I find almost every week when I go into Zoom, something has changed because it's just rapidly advancing. But go to Zoom's website. There are tutorials. Like Rich said, dive into it, use it. There's so many things in settings that you can mess with and learn as well.
And
yeah,
maybe
that's exactly what I was going to say. Zoom is the best way to see how to use Zoom for sure.
And
Well,
I've used, sorry, Rich, I've used a lot of platforms over the last year, particularly in the meetings setting. But when it comes to training, and we just conducted a pilot training course yesterday, Tim and Rich were on ADAS and the role of the driver educator, which we presented on Monday. And the first training date we did in Teams. Well, we quickly adapted and said the next two we're doing in Zoom. I really like Zoom for the training environment. There's so much more you can do with it, not to promote any one product, but.
right. And they give you support, like you said. I think maybe the next one of the next webinars we do is how to use Zoom and really invite people to participate in that. So just saying.
And Steven says breakout rooms in Zoom are must if you have a large class. And I would agree with that 100%.
100%.
100.
Great tool.
Well, 99.9%. I'll be the one that's kind of be a bit of an outlier here.
It's a great tool, but you need to practice with breakout rooms before you try to do it with a class, especially if it's a larger class.
Well, and the other thing too is if we want to look at breakout rooms, one of the reasons that one of the breakout rooms worked better than the other was that there were some objectives that were clearly identified by the people in the breakout rooms. And so the other one, they were just kind of going, and so having some training on that would be very, very helpful.
Yeah, in our workshop on the ANSTI website in August, I talk about breakout rooms and what breakout room was good, which one was bad, and why. And so there's really good resources and tips to make sure that you have your breakout rooms be effective. We can't just throw them in a room.
Okay, I think we're at a point where they need to take a real quick break, powder their nose, and come back for Allison, because she looks like she's ready to jump on it here and give them the good news. So listen, I want to say first and foremost, thank you for all of you who participated in today's presentation. It was delightful to see that you guys were engaged and had a great opportunity to pick up some new information. And it's always fun working with these other characters over here. I'm telling you, they do brighten my day quite a bit. So it's a lot of fun. So I think it's time for me and the rest of us to kind of sign off.
Thank you for all you do in traffic safety education.
There you go. You can't stick around and listen to Allison's presentation. I hear it's pretty good. So anyway, Allison, have a great time. Guys, we'll talk to you later.